You drive around. I have an Arizona license. Give me like 60 days to get done. I gotta get part of it. So we get Baltimore license there. What kind of bullshit is that? Think about all the different. Dude, the laws are insane. They are so strict here about everything. Really? Oh my god. That's strange considering like.
That way it works well.
Yeah, right? That's why we have so much money.
That's why the crime rate's so low.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't have more votes.
Yeah, so you picked up your stuff hit, whatever what.
I gotta go in. Yeah, first I gotta take 4-hour class. You're already done, but I gotta go get fingerprinted by the police, and then a background check. It takes like a month. Jesus.
What?
Should you take care of?
To pick up his to pick up the safety ball with the bomb.
Oh, really?
I bought a gun.
You bought a gun? That's cool. What'd you buy?
I bought a Smith & Wesson Shield 9mm.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, 9mm good.
Great purchase in Baltimore, I believe.
Never bought a gun.
Oh, really? Yeah, I never bought one online. I mean, that's cool. I mean, you're in every database now.
Yeah, I kind of figured out it was.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, all those right-wing websites.
Oh, yeah.
Go on this list.
Yeah, I tried.
You gotta have a burner.
I'm the first one in the FEMA camp for that.
yeah.
Just gotta look at my Amazon.com purchases and.
Yeah, I regret my closure. See, I should have been
And all these water purification.
Pens, paper, whatever we can.
Check out my survival. Oh yeah. They've got a lot. I think it'd be a good
Good time.
What was that show called? Oh, just Friends. MTV. MTV Bunker. Yeah. All the survivors. Yeah. I just started about that whole hell of a super rich nuclear fallout.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, this is like. I actually underground, man. Yeah.
Missile silo and Kansas.
Yeah.
Apartments and all that.
Do they have internet access? Sounds like the Matrix. I don't know. I'm sure it's any news goes on.
It's like, oh,
How's that season?
Now,
Whatever.
speaking of backed up, that's
It's delicious. That's just solid.
I'll never forgive you for what you did last time to me. Like, seriously, I wanted to hit you.
Yeah,
But
I deserve it. But
it was going to be on tape, and so there was going to be.
that's
other
right. Yeah,
things.
exactly. We'll use that. Sent that to my attorney.
So I have that.
Okay. Smart move. Smart move.
Yeah. Everything you say will do will thank you because the answer is great.
Oh, yeah, cell phones.
So
Almost forgot the
I
tradition.
don't want to.
Keep yours, guys.
Oh, mine rang.
This is This is going to be bad.
You gotta pass, figure it out, I guess. And
Thank you.
Oh
my goodness.
Where are we going to empty
So
it?
don't make a
Please, careful.
I got you.
Wait. That's okay.
In the middle.
Oh, God. This is so
Jesus.
This is a test of your covers. This even lasts.
Yeah, right on. Oh, okay. All right, yeah, that's cool. Anybody else?
Take one and pass the rest down. All right, as you guys are getting your little packet, I want you to, we'll remove the paperclip, and I put 4 lip notes stapled together. So just read them quickly.
This guy deserves a proper intro.
Oh, okay.
So, you guys all know Scott Bardelli, but he's one of the top copywriters at Agora Financial. In my opinion, one of the top copywriters in this industry. So it's worth listening to. He's going to go over what could be kind of an abstract topic about numbers, especially if you're innumerate like me, which is the same thing as illiterate as far as numbers. But since we all get paid in numbers, I think you guys should pay attention because it can be really fascinating. And when it's your own numbers where you're getting money making money off them, then it's going to be really fascinating. Trust me on that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know, I spent a previous life as an accountant and an auditor. That's what I did out of college. So numbers are kind of my thing. And they're very helpful kind of in our industry because we get to work in an industry where all of your sales, I mean, just kind of your performance, they're all hidden in these numbers. And it can be very beneficial if you know how to read the numbers. It can give you ideas for how to write better lift notes, how to write better, just supporting copy. So it's very useful. And I'd like to say before I start that if you have any questions or even, weeks down the road, if you're trying to figure something out numbers wise, you're always welcome to come by my, my little cubicle and we can talk some numbers. So, the little packet that I passed around, it's kind of an oldie but a goodie, a little lesson. And so you're basically at the point now where you've written your first package and it's gone to legal and it's gone into production and it is ready to rock and roll. And things have kind of changed a little bit over time, but back in the day, you would typically write some space ads or insert ads, as we call them, and they kind of go to some of our bigger lists. I've noticed now that that's kind of changed now since we're all in the silo realm. Your inserts aren't going to go to the list that they would have gone to a few years back. Now they kind of go to. I know I just wrote one. And this is my first experience with the whole silo thing. But I wrote one for DTC, which is under St. Paul Research, and it seems like their go-to list for trying out new front-end copy anyway, is the Daily Edge. So I know each silo is going to be different, but back in the day, it would go to the 5 and Laissez-Faire, the Daily Reckoning, and kind of based off those numbers, if they were good, they would start to run inserts, full dedicateds. If they were bad, your promo kind of goes bye-bye very quietly and very quickly. So I guess this is just my little, I'm trying to help you put your best foot forward. So did everyone read the 4 lift notes or skim them? And I'm sure you all are starting to take guesses on which one won, because what this was a but we sent out the first dedicated. So basically, this is for Canadian Social Security, and it did well initially in the insert test, or in the insert ad test, and so then it went to full on dedicated. And we basically, and I recommend everybody do this. You write 4 or 5 lift notes, and what we're looking for is the winner, basically. If you write 1, then you're kind of stuck with the 1. And it's always good to write more than 1 to do a big test right off the bat. That way, you're kind of covering a lot of ground. So when Canadian Social Security went out for its first dedicated, we did a 4-way split on lift notes. And this one was A, and the headline, also the subject line, was "Wait, a socialist program that actually works." And you can skim over the actual lift note. The second one was called "The Truth About Canadian Social Security," and that one's quite a bit longer, a lot more information in there. The third one, C, was "The Maryland Teacher Collects $48.91 piggybacking Canadian Social Security." And the last one I put is "The Question That Had Me Scratching My Head." And it's kind of about a quiz about which country has the world's greatest Social Security program. And these aren't in any particular order from what I'm going to put up on this little blackboard here. So let's see, we have A, B, C, and D, we're calling them. And so when any lift note goes out, there's some main metrics that you're looking for, numbers that you're trying to hit. I'm sure you guys already know a little bit about this, so I'm sorry if I'm just kind of repeating something that you already know. But what you want is an open rate, a click-through rate, a conversion rate. Okay, these are the 3 main metrics right off the bat. Later, you'll get into something called average cart value. We'll get into that in a bit. But just right out the gate, these are the 3 numbers that you really want to focus on: your open rate, your click-through rate, and your conversion rate. So we've got an open rate, click-through rate, and a conversion rate. Okay? So I'm just going to start jabbing some numbers. You can feel free to just look over those lift notes, and I'm going to quiz you guys, and you'll tell me which one you think is the best. Actually, before I put up the numbers, does anyone want to take a guess? Who thinks "Wait, a socialist program that actually works" was the winner? Show of hands. 2. Who thinks it was "The Truth About Canadian Social Security"? 2. Who thinks it was "Maryland Teacher Collects $48.91 piggybacking"? It's the majority of people. And then the question that had me scratching my head.
It's a dark horse.
2. Okay.
I like
So,
CRD. I'll probably Jesus. They did great. Hey, your pain must have won. Click-through rate's like 30. No, the click-through CTR. Isn't she short? You're nothing.
Hey, dude.
all right, are these written big enough everyone can see?
Yeah.
Okay.
We did.
So-
A1, huh?
The open rates. Does anyone know what the open rate is? It's just the people that opened the email based off of the subject line that you provided. They see the subject line. If it intrigues them, they'll click on it. They'll open it. If not, it sits in their inbox and collects dust. The click-through rate. Okay, this number here, when the people open, so of this, percentage of people that actually open their email, how many people read this Lift Note and thought, I really want to check this out, and they click on one of the links in the Lift Note to get to the promo? That's your click-through rate, all right? Then your conversion rate. So you have, this many people opened it, this many people, percentage of people clicked on to view the promo, and this many people actually ended up buying. All right, that's your percentage. So let's see. A is the question that had me scratching my head. And as you can tell, the open rate was pretty similar for most of them. Not a lot of I don't know what word I'm looking for, but they're all very similar. It wasn't an anomaly. Yeah, well, there wasn't an outlier. They're all very similar. Things changed when you got to click-through rate. 31.01%. That was the question that had me scratching my head. Okay. B was the truth about Canadian Social Security.
Huh.
C was wait, a socialist program that actually works. And D was the Maryland teacher one. Okay? Now, just looking at these numbers, does that change your opinion about which one won? Oh, sorry. So then, of course, that's your click-through rate. And then you get to your conversion rate, which these are quite a bit different. And I'll show you that makes a huge difference in the end. But based off of what I just told you, does anyone want to change their answer?
Yeah.
Yeah. As you can see, the one that got the most clicks to the promo, and that's a number that's actually in Iris as well, because each list is different, right? So we're talking percentages here. If it goes to the 5-minute forecast, which has 350,000 readers roughly, you're going to get quite a few more clicks to the promo than if it goes to, America Uncensored, which is probably a third the size, right? But when you're talking in percentages, it keeps everything equal, okay? So the best click-through rate was the question that had me scratching my head. The second best was the truth about Canadian Social Security. Third best was the Maryland teacher. And fourth would be the question, a weighted socialist program that works. But of course, these two may have been about equal. This one has slightly higher open. This one has slightly higher click-through rates to the promo, right? So these two were probably had about a similar amount of clicks. This one had by far the most people actually viewing the promo, and this one was probably second. Yeah, this one was definitely second. But as you can see, these Lift Notes are all very different, right? And there are two types of Lift Notes and SpaceX. One is direct, and one is indirect, okay? A direct Lift Note is this one to a T. The truth about Canadian Social Security. Why is it direct? Because what's the promo about?
Yeah,
Canadian Social Security, right? So we have two directs. The truth about Canadian Social Security and Maryland teacher collects $48.91 piggybacking Canadian Social Security. Those are very direct Lift Notes. There's no mystery. People, they read this and they click on the promo, or they click to go to the promo, and the promo is about the exact same thing, right? Wait, a socialist program that works. This one is very indirect. You don't really know what you're getting into by reading this Lift Note. And the same thing with the question that had me scratching my head. This is, just kind of a quiz for people. Which one has the best? Click here to see if you were right. But it's not direct. It's, when they read this, they don't really know what they're clicking to. The other two, they're very direct, and they know what they're clicking onto, okay? But the big question is, which one overall performed the best? And as you can see, things start to change quite a bit when you get to this, your conversion rate, okay? Obviously, now that you know the answer, which one had the best conversion rates? The direct ones, right? Why is that? Why do they have the best conversion rate? Because you're getting people, you're basically pre-qualifying these people in the lift node. They're saying, Canadian Social Security, that sounds interesting. I would like to learn more. And they click to find out, right? These other ones, they don't really know what they're getting into, right? Now, in a second, I'll show you a case where the indirect actually works. But the thing is, the conversion rate is so powerful because basically all of these people that come to your promo, you're multiplying it by this number, you know? And multiplication is very powerful, okay? So, that brings me to the real number, the only really number that really matters, right? Because all of this, like, we don't win awards. You're not going to win an award for writing the world's best lift note that gets the best click-through rates, right? But we don't hand out awards for that. Your main objective is this thing called orders, all right? At the end of the day, this is the only number that matters, your orders. That's what you get paid off of. These are new subscribers. You know, clicks get you nothing. Orders is where it's at. So, let's see. When you multiply it all together, sorry, that says 54, 136, 35, and 85. So there's a clear winner here, right? And surprisingly, the one that got the most clicks got the fewest the second fewest number of orders, right? So getting clicks, in a lot of cases, it doesn't do you any good if you have to sacrifice this number here, this conversion rate to get them, right? The one that's obviously the best is B. It had a very good open rate, very good click-through rate, and it held the conversions the highest out of all of them. When you multiply all that together, it destroyed the other three. All right. So, what are we typically looking for?
Scott, just to something out. I mean, I just did that on a calculator just before I'm enumerate. Like 136 is like almost 3 times more than 35.
Yes,
That's a lot.
it's quite a bit more. I would say 4.
Yeah, it is 4 times.
4, yeah. Okay, 4 times.
I mean, even this one,
Same.
even this one, where the numbers were very similar. You know, it just had just slightly fewer clicks, slightly fewer click-through rate, and a slightly lower conversion rate. But I mean, it's when you multiply all these factors together, I mean, that's what is that? That's 51 more orders. You know. If you're getting $1 a name, that's $50 more. You know, it's huge. So what do we want? You know, what do they want in a lift node? Well, you want around a 20% open rate. You want around a 20% click-through rate. Okay, those are great. So what is a good conversion rate? What do you want your promo to be converting at? Because, like I said, this is your subject line, which you can change easily. This is your lift note, which you can change easily. This is your conversion rate. This is your promo, okay? This is your promo right here. If your promo is good, you're going to get high conversion rate if, of course, you have a direct lift note. Even 2.1 and 3.1. These are all fantastic numbers, all right? So what do we typically want? We want 20%, 20%, and we used to say 2%, but I think the stakes, I think the bar has been raised a little bit. I think if you're not hitting around 3-4% conversion rate, kind of on average. On the front end, yeah. Sorry, yes. Ryan brings up a good point. This is a front end promo. Front end and back ends, conversion rate numbers are different. Obviously, these numbers, you should always strive for 20 and 20. But yeah, conversion rate is going to be much higher for a front end than it is a back end. So you want typically 3 to 4% conversion rate. If you do higher than that, you got yourself a hit. If it's, you know, right around 2%, it's just not going to work. Because of, you know, there's something called copy fatigue. You know, but this is the first time anyone has seen this promo. You know, if you're right around 2%, a couple weeks down the road, people have seen it now. The numbers are going to go down, and it's not going to even be runnable at that point. So the good news is your conversion rate, or the bad news is your conversion rate, you're kind of stuck with that. You know, you're really, it's hard to improve your copy. You can always improve these numbers here, okay? So, I'm not gonna write these down, but I guess maybe I should write them down. I'm gonna write one here. This one was for the Nazi cancer cure. It went to the 5-minute forecast. There was an, I don't know. Okay, I'll write it down here. There was an A, a B, and a C. And it was 21.8, 20.57, and I wish I had printed these out, but I didn't. 26. 30. 4, 6, 3, 4, and 5, 6. Okay, so this one was for the Nazi cancer cure. Back when it first went out, it went to the 5-minute forecast. And I wrote these down. A, he basically had a very indirect subject line. You know, it was kind of like, wait, have you seen this? Very indirect. And it was the case for all three of these. The first two, this was it was a very direct lift note. This was a very direct lift note. And this one was an indirect lift note. Obviously, this one got quite a bit higher clicks. And this one had 182 orders, 155, and 269 when you run the math. So what he was able to do with this indirect lift note, he was able to increase his clicks, but his conversion rate held steady, you know? So at the end of the day, this one was the winner and this one became the control, just like this one became the control. The control is like, and that's the reason we do this. You know, I think after we did this, we took B and we then wrote 4 more and tested them all again. This one won quite handily again. It became the control. So if we're sending it to here or there or Money Map or, you know, all over the place, or if it goes on to Yahoo or whatever, you know that you can always do quite well if, and that was everywhere, this lift note about the truth about Canadian Social Security. I used the same lift note zillions of times. It was in, I mean, I basically recreated this for radio ads, you know. So that's the whole purpose of this, is you're looking at these numbers and you're trying to find the winner. And once you find the winner, then you test it again, and if it's still the winner, then you know you have the control, and that's the one that's going to get sent everywhere. So these are lift notes. Then I think I printed out, let's see. Yeah, I think I printed out 3 different space ads. Okay, so let's look at space ads. These are lift notes. Oh, and sorry, I didn't print out any back ends, but for a back end, does anyone know what a good benchmark is for a back end percentage-wise? You really want to shoot for about 1% conversion rate. 1% right out of the gate, that's considered good. Anything above that, obviously better. Right out of the gate, you know, if you're hovering around 1% is okay. If you're down at like 0.5%, it's just not going to get a lot of action because it's just not going to get us a lot of
So it's kind of like
sales.
our marketing team is looking for 2 different things. On the front end, they're looking to scale something. So that's why they want the big number, like Scott was saying, because they can drop that email everywhere. That's what the job's going to do. Trying to hit certain metrics, which maybe we'll talk about, like CPAs, et cetera. On the back end, really, like, we're looking to collect the money. So if your back end converts at like 0.5% and mine converts at 0.8%, the marketing team's going to realize mine's going to make more money, so I'm going to get your spot. So that's kind of how it works. And that's why that number can fluctuate, meaning like right now we don't have very many back ends that are working. Maybe 0.7 will work because no one's written one that's right hot. The minute someone writes one that's like 1 to 2%, that's going to get all the traffic because that's going to make the most economic sense.
Yep, good point. So, where's the one that I wanted to show you? So, okay, go to this one that says alert from Altiture. It says it at the bottom. Our man back there with the shaved head wrote this one, Mr. Rob.
Click your name.
And
5 times.
And okay, so this is a screenshot from Iris, okay? And there's a lot of numbers on here. As you can see right here, placement. It's on the left-hand side at the top. Maybe about 7 lines down. It says placement. Okay, it was the top ad. Now, when you have a question? Or are you stretching? So when they lay out, like, let's say the 5-minute forecast, okay, there's going to be a top ad right up top. And then there's a few that are middle ads, and then they'll have maybe one at the bottom, okay? So you always want to look at where the placement is to kind of gauge your numbers, because obviously if it's the top ad, it's going to get a lot more attention than the bottom ad, all right? So this one was for the top ad. It went to Altiture Confidential. That was the list that it went to. It was just in there, you know, daily. Hey, it's me, James. This is what's going on in the markets. It had an ad at the top, and it says alert from Altiture: do not buy these 5 cryptocurrencies. All right, click to view. Now going down, there's a lot of numbers here, but the number that you always have to look for space ads is on the right-hand side. In what's this, third section, it says CTR promo. Does everyone see that? That's your click-through rate to the promo. Okay, the line above it is the open rate, just like in the lift notes that we talked about. There's a subject line, and however many people click on that, that's the open rate. But you have no control over that because you didn't write the subject line. It's just the daily issue, right? But it can affect the numbers. Okay, if whoever's right, if James Altiture came up with a brilliant issue, he had a great subject line, and everyone opened up this thing, well, obviously you're going to get a lot. You're going to be the beneficiary because there's more people that are going to see your space ad. But you really can't control that, but it will affect the numbers. The important thing to look at for space ads, front end, back end, doesn't matter, is click-through rate to the promo. And I printed this one out because it's one of the highest I've ever seen in my years of doing this. 57.17%. More than half of the people that opened up this issue clicked on this ad. Like, that is insane, okay? So the other metric that you're gonna wanna look at is down here under effort statistics, it says conversion rate, okay? So it converted at 0.48, which you would think, oh, but wait, Scott, you just said that that's no good. We want 1%, right? 0.48, that's not good. When you're getting 57% of everybody clicking onto your ad, it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's an insane number. So he drove so much traffic on there that even though it only converted at 0.48, because obviously there's a big disconnect, right? They click on the promo, and the promo isn't really about 5 cryptocurrencies to avoid, so there's a big disconnect. But it still converted at 0.5%, and that's why it brought in, I didn't add this up, $230,000 from an ad is insane. I mean, just to bring it back, the benchmark, and I know 5-minute forecast pretty well. The benchmark for a dedicated to the 5-minute forecast is $100,000. Like, if you do $100,000 from a dedicated to the 5-minute forecast, that's incredible. This thing did $230,000 from one little ad. That is crazy. So what is a good click-through rate to the promo? What are we striving for here? Because you're not all, I don't even know if I've ever gotten 57%. A good click-through rate for a space ad is going to be anywhere, and like I said, it depends on the placement. Top ad, middle ad, they're a little different. But generally speaking, if you can get anything north of 3%, that's good. 3%, 4%. If you get, like, for a top ad, you might want to go for 5%. But as you can see, this was better than 10 times better than what you're striving for. So, and it's going to be the same for all the lists. It doesn't matter if it's Altucher Confidential. It doesn't, all the lists. We're just talking percentages here. So a 5% click-through rate from your ad is what you're striving for here. And then there are some other numbers that will show up in Iris that can okay, so let's say your promo goes out and you're not impressed with the numbers. I brought this one in for a reason. Go to the one that says, "You'll never believe what this man found at the grocery store." And this was an ad for a promo that I thought was going to be the shit. And instead it was a big pile of shit. So when this thing went out, this was the first ad. And as you can see, okay, does anyone see what the conversion rate is? 1.55. And what did I say is good for a front end? 3%, 4%. So 1.55 is very low. So now I'm looking at other things. Now this is a space ad, so I go over to click-through rate to the promo. Well, I got 5% of clicks, and again, my placement was the middle ad. So 5% for a middle ad, it got a lot of traffic. The conversion rate was low. So then there are other numbers that can help you figure out, well, what went on here. So if you go over almost directly across from conversion rate, you'll see click-through rate to the order form, okay? This is everybody that clicked onto your promo, 3% made it to the order form. And that is ridiculously low. I mean, that is just pathetic. So I'm scratching my head. And then the other weird thing, underneath click-through rate to the order form is your abandon rate, okay? Abandon rate means they went to the order form, but they got cold feet and they didn't buy. Now you might think 54% abandon rate is bad. That's actually quite good. If you like, back to the Altucher one, that one had 2% going to the order form, but this is a back end, so it's different, and 77% abandon rate. So this one, it did quite good for abandon rate, but nobody went to the order form. So just from looking at all of these numbers, I thought, because, of course, in my head, this is going to be the next world's greatest promo, and I'm looking for reasons as to why it stunk so bad. And this number just baffled me. 3% for a front-end click-through rate to the order form. I mean, it should be about 15 to 20%. Even the bad ones, they'll be 10 to 15%, but then you'll have your abandon rate will be very high, 80, 90% abandons. That's usually what happens. But this one, 3.4% and 54% abandon rate. So I'm scratching my head, and I said, something is wrong with this promo. So I ended up just watching the entire VSL to see if there was something weird going on. And does anyone want to guess what weird thing was going on with this promo? They didn't put an order now button at the end of the promo.
No.
Right? So the reason I'm bringing this up for a reason. If you know these numbers, you can find things. Like nobody could have found this problem, Nobody's going to sit there and watch the whole VSL to find out why Scott's new promo stinks so bad. It's kind of on you, the copywriter, to look at these numbers and say, what the hell's going on here? So basically by these numbers, this low click-through rate to the order form. So what happened was every time a promo goes out, or usually there's a VSL. And if you don't want to watch the VSL, you can, scroll around with your mouse until you read the transcript. So in order to get to the actual order form, they had to X out and read the transcript, scroll to the bottom, and the order form button was on the HTML version, but not the VSL version. So of course, I watched to the end. There's no order form button, and I was screaming at my people. I said, I figured it out. So of course, I went over and told production they needed to put an order now button. And then I thought I'd fix the problem, and then it went out the next day, and it still stunk. But by looking at the numbers, I was right. So if you look at these numbers, they'll always paint a little picture for you. You know, what's going on with this promo? They got a lot of clicks. The conversion rate was low. Why was the conversion rate low? Because nobody was going to the order form. And surprisingly, half of the people abandoned, which is good. So moving on, here's another one that I printed out. This is another front end. And sorry, I'm much more geared towards front end, so I talk about the more. The numbers are slightly different for back ends. But anyway, so here's another one that actually worked. This one was for my TK pot promo. And again, what are we looking for here? Okay, it was a middle ad in Laissez-Faire Today. So, okay, middle ad, right placement, and then list, Laissez-Faire Today. So it had a 4.43% click-through rate to the promo. That's good, right? And from that, it got a 7.46 conversion rate. That's phenomenal, right? So this became a big ad that we ran quite a bit based off of these numbers. And again, click-through rate to the order form, 14%. Abandon rate, 47%, right? So that's kind of, your click-through rate to the order form should be somewhere between 10 and 20%. And typically on good promos, the abandon rate is much lower. Like that's usually your problem, is the abandon rate. If your promo isn't converting well, check your abandon rate, front end, back end, they're gonna be high. Abandon rate, you want it to be less than 60% on a front end. 90% is good for a back end. A lot of people, I mean, it's a big commitment. You know, they'll watch the promo. They'll sometimes we don't put the price, and then they'll have to find the price by going to the order form, and then it's like, $2,000, $5,000. It's a lot of money to fork over. So you'll have very high abandon rates on back ends. But if you can keep it around 90%, 90% is very good for back ends. Let's see what this one was. Yeah, this one had a 77%, this Altucher one that I showed you. So 77%, you can see how it's higher. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess the point is, me typically, when I write, when my promo first comes out of legal and production, and I'm writing my initial ads, and copywriters are different, but for me personally, I always like to go direct right out of the gate, because that's the theme of your promo, right? And I chose that theme of the promo because I thought it was something sexy. I thought it was something that people would want, something that people would click on. That's why I wrote the promo that way. So I always attack my ads, my lift notes, as direct as possible, right out of the gate. One, it's going to increase your conversion rate typically. So if you can get your conversion rate up, being direct, marketing really likes that. It really helps, I think, when you're going to like Yahoo and the ad networks, to have a promo that's proven to convert very well. There's a lot of manipulation you can do to try to get more traffic, but if you can show that the copy converts, then you're going to get a lot more love than a promo that just doesn't seem to convert that well, even though you're driving a lot of traffic. That's just my take on it. And then once the promo's out there for a while, you're going to see the numbers start to dip off when you're going direct, and that's when I typically will start to write indirect supporting material. Once the direct stuff doesn't seem to work as well anymore. I mean, it's fatigue. Every piece of copy goes through it. The more people that have seen it, your number is going to start to go lower. So how do you then I go indirect to kind of get more eyeballs back onto the promo. That's the route that I go. But as I showed you, the winner here, this was very indirect. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes that's the best route, but for me personally, I always go direct right out the gate. And then there's another metric. I don't think it's printed out on here, but it's a very easy number to remember. Your average cart value, okay? Your average cart value, you want it to be north of $100. So for And does anyone know an average? I mean, what's the average cart value, right? And we're talking front ends here. Back ends, it's going to be in the thousands, and it's different. Front ends, you need your average cart value to be about 100 or more for a typical offer. You know, we'll do a lot of book stuff where we're going more for volume of names, and it's quite a bit different. But for typical, you know, traditional front end promos, you want it to be about $100 or more. And the reason for that is because it gives our marketers a lot more leeway in how aggressive they can be with your copy. We try to beat the other guys and get the top slot on Yahoo, or, you know, if you can get your cart value up past 100, you'll see that it will really exponentially increase the amount of traffic that they can drive to your promo. And a good example of this, and I don't think we do a very good job at this. I mean, we do an okay job, but who's it, Banyan Hill? I'm sure everybody reads the Zambezi every day, right? That Joe sends around. And I'll guarantee you, I can't guarantee it because they have a promo that's actually bringing in a lot of names. But back 3 months back, of all those Altucher front end promo was bringing in like 1,000 names a day, right? But he was the second slot for a while there for Banyan Hill. Banyan Hill brought on maybe 60% as many names, but if you look at their average cart value, it was like $135, $150. So if anyone wants to make Joe real happy, figure out a funnel system that can drive your cart value to as high as Banyan Hills is, because it would really help everybody here. You'd be a superstar if you could figure this out. I know we've looked into what they're doing, but
Yeah,
I've never
excellent
seen us
marketers.
bring in numbers like that.
They get a lot of upfront money with the cart values, and then they do those product launch formulas, which we looked at a couple weeks ago. So they have a really good idea how much money they're going to have on the back end. So they're great at monetizing the names after they initially get them, but they're great at getting a lot of money up front, which is really kind of the whole game. To Scott's point is conversion rates, click-through rates, open rates. Those are very abstract things. Like, we get paid in money, and on the front end, we get paid in customers that we're going to monetize later. So those are the only metrics that really matter: are orders on the front end and the amount of money you bring on the back end.
Yeah, and that's kind of the reason that I wanted to show you these numbers, is that, you know, getting like once a week we send out a who had the best lift note, you know, the best click-through rate and all that stuff. But I mean, if you're getting a 50% click-through rate from your lift note and it's converting at 1%, it's a wash. You know? And what you're also doing is you're driving a lot of people to your promo that are kind of pissed off when they get there. You know, they're like, hey, wait a minute. You know, I thought I was going to get to see some naked chicks or something. And then they get to your promo, and they're like, what? This is about Canadian Social Security? And then it pisses them off. So then when you drive them, they're, you know, then when they see ads that say Canadian Social Security, they're like, oh, no, I've already seen that. You know, they didn't give it a chance. They were so pissed off because you kind of tricked them, you know, and then they've seen it. So that's why I always go direct right out of the gate, because you want to kind of pre-qualify people, get them to your promo. That way, you know, you're getting the people that are kind of interested in it to begin with, and then later you can trick them.
I mean, at Scott's point too, like, if you want to be direct in the beginning, because that's just the clearest way to communicate to our prospects what you have, and to our marketing team the response on that. Like, you're not going to fool anybody. If you're getting a lot of traffic to a low converting, I mean, they might run it a little bit longer, but at some point it's going to fatigue and end. So, I mean, you can work really hard, I guess, and try to squeeze every dime out of kind of a mediocre promo, or, you know, maybe it's better just to like write another one that has a higher conversion rate. I mean, it's nothing wrong with trying to optimize, but it's a lot harder to optimize something small than something big.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
There's thing here on F-Statistics. It's called revenue per click to order form. Is that like the closest thing to average cart value?
The revenue per click to order form. That is a number that I don't pay any attention to.
Because it makes sense that it like kind of could be close to that.
Well, that's
Not
yeah, probably. I mean, yeah. I'm not 110% sure on what that
Yeah.
number is, but there's actually a number in Iris
called average. Yeah.
that's called average cart
Yeah.
value. It doesn't show up on this page,
Yeah.
but
It's one of the quirky things about Iris. You can find the average cart value if you look at it when it has the list of
Table
everything.
thing.
yeah, and usually it changes sometimes, which is weird. But usually, yeah, when you're, let's say, like what I like to do, and I can show you guys how to do this if you don't know, but you can set up a little thing, a little like easy click button that like my new one just went out for Dollar Trade Club. And so I organized it so that all of my promo just shows up on a page. Anything new, it just like you just and you set it up so you just click there and bam, there's everything that's going out for blockchain for Dollar Trade Club.
Oh, yeah.
Internal, external.
Can you make us a Loom video? Can you
What was that?
make us a Loom video, like a screen capture video?
Honestly, there's probably people that are way more proficient with Iris than I am. I know the numbers, but I don't know how to manipulate it and organize it and do all. Like, there's really cool things you can do with Iris. And we had a guy that he worked at like, I don't know, 14 West or something, or I don't know, somewhere. He was an internal guy, but he specializes in Iris.
Okay.
And he came in and showed us all these cool things.
Okay.
If you're interested, we should probably get that guy to come in because honestly, he'd be a way better teacher than I am. Like I have it set up the way that I like it, but I mean, there's so much more cool stuff that you can do. But little things. If you have questions on like what does this number mean, or how can I do this? I can help you navigate it. But I'm by all means I'm not an expert. There's way better people to handle that. But yeah, so I don't think there's a lot of other metrics that you're. Is there another metric that I should be talking about right out of the gate here?
Maybe like CPAs and stuff like that. Like that'll come next week when we do media buying.
Yeah, and there's probably somebody that's
really
even
is
better
like-
qualified to talk about.
And
all
really,
that
like
stuff.
that's not even like the copywriters can only manipulate really the average cart value is the only thing like is CPAs.
Yeah, the cost per acquisition. It's that's more of a marketing thing. Like, and again, if you do your job and you have converting copy and your cart value is high, then you don't have to worry about that. That's kind of how it works. That's their job, and your job is to increase your cart value. I mean, does anyone know how to increase their cart value? It's basically your upsell, your funnel. After they buy, after they even right from the gate of buying it, maybe you go to Joe and say, we do 49, 79, and 99. Have we ever tried to do, 59, 89, and 119? Let's try that. There's lots of things we can test, and that's the beauty of what we do. You can test anything you want to test. So that can increase your cart value just charging them more initially up front. And then after they click, or after they buy, what else can we try to sell them? Well, right now the funnel is set up to, go this route. What if we did something different? Let's try that. So, and that like you'll write the copy for the upsell path and all of that stuff, and then they'll just test it. So don't be afraid to test things. All of your crazy zany ideas on how to increase cart value or anything like that. That's kind of the beauty of what we do. We can test everything. So if you think you have an idea on how to increase your cart value, try it out. It's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah, that's after you figure out number one, how to get the conversion rate up, meaning your promotion works, and the second of all, then you get the traffic, like
Yeah.
Scott was showing you.
Yeah.
This is going to make a huge difference in the final numbers.
And I will tell you that after you've written your copy and it's gone out, if your copy at least converts reasonably well, you're going to make the biggest impact on increasing this number, your orders, by then trying to manipulate these numbers, right? It's called basically the the top of the funnel. You know, if you can hold, like, if you can somehow hold close to this number and double both of these numbers, you're gonna double, you know, your sales, or maybe even more than that.
I haven't seen any recently, but a couple years ago, I remember we had a couple promotions, some that had like a 3 or 4% conversion rate, but they couldn't figure out how to get any traffic to the promotion. So those end up being failures, even though the people that ended up on the few people that ended up on the page end up buying, but they couldn't figure out how to get traffic to it.
I've had a few of those, and they're the most frustrating, the most frustrating thing ever. And what it comes down to is your idea just isn't sexy enough. It's just not in the mainstream news enough. It's just, you know, you picked a bad idea. You picked an idea that it's just not gonna kill it no matter what you do. You know, and then you'll try to trick people and you'll get better clicks, or then your conversion rate will plummet. It's this horrible game. And if something like that happens, and you know, sometimes it's best to just move on and write something else. You know, and that's another thing I was going to say. If you're on, if your copy, it just doesn't have the numbers that you need it to have. And I can tell you this, and I'll guarantee that if it happens to you, you're going to desperately try to somehow salvage this piece of copy. Oh, what if we try, you know, this relead or that or this or that? Do yourself a favor, forget about it, move on to the next one. Because in this business, it's all about taking a lot of swings. You know, each time you write a piece of copy, it's a swing. And even the best copywriters in the world, usually 1 out of 3 is going to be a winner. The other 2 are going to go bye-bye. That's just the reality of it. So, gosh, I feel like there's other things I should be covering. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
you guys have any-
especially right out of the gate. You know, down the road, you know, there's other things we can talk about. But right now, this is what you want to focus: your open rate for a lift note, your click-through rate for your space ads in your lift note, and your conversion rate. That's really, and of course your orders and your cart value.
Does anyone have any questions
You
for
have
Scott?
easy control of manipulate.
So you said you mostly do front ends. What would you say your hit rate is on the front end?
1 out of 3. Yeah.
It's probably the same.
Later
back end. I mean,
Yeah, it's about the same on the back end too.
So if you have a front end, I mean, I might not be doing the math right, but is there a situation where it has a low conversion rate but a super high cart value? Like, how would you try and salvage that? Would you do like a root lead on that? Like, what do you do when something's
If it has a super low conversion rate, you're dead in the water.
just on to the next one?
Yeah. I mean, on a front end, if your conversion rate is like 1.5, which is awful, your cart value is like $175. Well, then going forward, you're going to want to use the same upsell path, you know. But your copy is dead; it's not going to work.
any other questions? Yeah, who learned something from Scott? What'd you learn?
I always do that. I always just think we're doing it general.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the actual what you looked at for conversions, like on the front end.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Jimmy?
I like your concept with doing a direct lift because it pre-qualifies the reader. It's like, let's not bullshit each other here. This is what it is. Do you want to go look at it? And here it is.
And like I said earlier, the reason that I always go direct is because I thought of that idea and I thought, this is sexy. People are going to want this. So why would you want to take an idea that you built an entire promotion around and then hide what it is? If you're hiding what it is right out the gate, then that's not a good sign to me.
How much confidence there?
Yeah, you know, if it's about Canadian Social Security, people better want Canadian Social Security or your promo's just not going to work in the long term.
Yeah, I realize like the top of the funnel kind of dictates how people eventually arrive at the end of the funnel. Like the congruency kind of matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And just looking at these 4 examples, just kind of took that to home.
Yeah. Fred?
I have a question. So you talk about like the conversion rate is the deal killer number. If it has a too low conversion rate, sometimes you're better to move on. does it happen often? Like you like your idea, but the conversion rate is low, and you try to write a new lead, new headline, and a new lead. Like we talk about maybe things to increase the cart value, but what about things to increase your conversion rate?
Yeah, so I suggest writing multiple leads. I don't do that enough. I think that could be from the very beginning. That might be a way to increase your chances, like Scott decided to get more swings.
Yeah.
I've only had it once where I saved a front end by putting a new lead on it. And even then it went from a mediocre, which is like 1.5 to 2.5%, which is enough to make it a slightly less slightly more mediocre, I guess. Success. So I've never seen it where completely turned it around. I think usually the idea itself is what dictates it. That's why we spend so much time in the idea here on the camp. But it can't hurt to have multiple leads for promotion. It just gives you more chances. But again, you want to have those be a lot more indirect or different in order to be worth your time. It's kind of a rule in our business called test screams, not whispers. So, like, if you're gonna have a read lead, it can't be just like changing one word in your headline or changing it. I mean, you should really looking at the Great Leads book. Maybe if you're a story lead, maybe try a secret lead, maybe try a straight offer lead or something like that. I mean, that should be really different enough to be any kind of statistical validity of a test. So,
On this idea of testing things that scream, how differently can you express the same big idea? Can you express it in a way?
I just know because I've written backends that ran for years. I put seemingly radical new leads on them, even though really there's the same idea behind it.
Okay.
I can show you some examples how I did that. But the impact system, that was the original lead was pretty much about that. And then we had a situation like Brexit, we would change the lead and say, this is my number one way to play Brexit, and it'd be all about Brexit, even though really it still is the same big idea of the impact system. It's just
Yeah, at the core of it, it's Jim Rickards.
We did the same thing with Trump out like that. I mean, so the leads look different, but it's still the same idea.
When you are early on in that process, if you decide, if it's close and you decide maybe a read lead is going to help, how do you do an apples to apples comparison to that? Do you still do the same? I mean, do you use the same lifts or the same ads?
That's where it gets tricky.
I mean,
if you had it in the beginning, then you can do a true split test, and you can do an ABC if you have 3 different leads. Usually, when it's a failure, I mean, just throw it back out again. I mean, you already know the other one's a loser, right?
Well,
so it's you're not trying to optimize; you're just trying to get another swing.
I see. Yeah.
Well, and sorry, again, this is why I printed this one out for a reason. Because I found this crazy outlier number, this click-through rate of 57%. So this was actually written for your promo, and I had the James Altucher cracks the crypto code going for the back end, which was doing quite well. But then I went and I asked these two guys if they would mind if I use this as an alt lead, because my original lead was kind of running out of steam. And so we just basically tacked this on top. We didn't even really write a new lead, just had a new headline on it, and we ran these ads. I mean, what did we pull? Another couple million out of that promo. So so that's why you look at these numbers, and I still think, and I'll pound the table on this, why someone hasn't written this as a front end for Altucher and just sold it here's I'm James Altucher and I love cryptocurrencies, but there are tons and tons and tons of scams out there right now. Odds are one of you probably has bought one of these things and it's going to go to zero and you're going to lose all your money. You need to get my list of the top 5 or 10 cryptos and blockchain companies to completely avoid because they're total scams.
Yeah.
That should be a front-end promotion that we should be running right now.
Come on, Braddock.
Hey.
Well, and if Altucher don't want it, do it for Rickards. I'm Rickards, and there's only a few cryptocurrencies I think are worth a damn. I think most of them are scams, and some of them, people, they're worth billions and billions of dollars right now, and they're total scams. Did anyone see that? What's that guy's name? John Oliver.
Yeah.
You guys watch this thing? He did a thing on cryptocurrencies.
On Video.
watch that. You know, you can use elements from that. You know, there's a guy up there just screaming like, "We're gonna make money, money, money!" Like the whole thing was ridiculous. It was for like BitConnect or something. You know?
Yeah.
So
So
BitConnect is worth like billions of dollars. It was.
Something
Yeah,
now.
it's like-
But you know, there's a lot of these scams going on right now.
Next week, we're going to get into, a week from today, a short copy clinic about writing lists and inserts. That's one of the opportunities is if you can strike gold with a lift or an insert, you've got an emotional response from our lists. Sometimes you can turn that into a lead or even a whole promo.
Yeah,
So that's really the opportunity there.
like right here, you're saying, this kind of struck a nerve with our readers. 57% of people wanted to know which ones to avoid. You know.
But to tie it back
Bam.
to Scott, you got to be the one looking at the numbers to see that opportunity. I mean, occasionally someone like Joe or one of the publishers will spot it. Occasionally one of the marketers might spot it. But extreme ownership, you need to be looking at your numbers, or you could be sitting at potential winner of an insert ad that everyone will be like, wow, what a great day for Ryan's promo. He got $200,000 that day. Well, really, the reason why I got that money that day was because of Rob's insert ad. And if no one had been paying attention to that, then that opportunity could have been missed.
What do they call it? Let your winners ride.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a winner. You know, you should be letting this baby ride as much.
But you
as
gotta be the one spotting them and flagging that opportunity to whoever you need to talk to exploit it.
What happens in the game when you move to cold traffic and you get off of like our lists and insert ads?
And the conversion rate will go down. That's why we're looking for that 3 to 4%.
Yeah.
If you look, it's worth going into the iris screen and looking at the external sends and clicking at some of those, and you'll see the conversion rates are radically less. I mean, you're looking 1 to 2%, probably even less than 1% sometimes. Again, because they're using different metrics, they're trying to get this cost per acquisition, which they'll go over on Monday, the different media bag strategies. But that's why we need on our lists, our house lists, those higher numbers.
So I guess what I'm asking is like, is it even worthwhile to really look or even obsess over like once it goes external? Do you kind of just like, I hit those benchmarks, I did everything I could?
So the way you can do it to kind of reverse, like back into this again, is every time you write a lift for an internal send, you really want something that can scale up is what you want. So it's very important. You should be looking for those opportunities and not see them like marketing's asked me to write another lift for my front end. Well, you can see how the changes in numbers can affect the order. You know what I mean? So the more you can optimize, you may even say, well, yeah, I'll write 4 and we'll do a split test on them because I want to find the winner.
Yeah.
So the traffic driving element is when you have a winner, a hit on the front end, you want to give marketing more tools to go out there with. And so that's like, you might even ask like, hey, this one looks like it's geeking out. I have a couple better ideas for some new traffic drivers. Can we test them out in our list? And they should say yes if it's still working at some point.
Yeah.
Quick question. Have you guys ever like split test big ideas via ads? That's
Like just to test an idea?
Yeah, have you guys ever come up, let's say you come with a Canadian Social Security thing, and it was like, your pension plan thing, Canadian Social Security, like, I got this idea, maybe we should just run some base ads and see, like do it all the
I mean,
time.
it sounds in theory, but I think like the real estate is too valuable for us to do that. I've always said I should just go on Facebook and spend like $100 a month just testing out big ideas like that. My own money is
It's a smart thing to do.
I think the way we look at it is like that space. We have so much copy coming out that we just don't have that spot just purely to test something.
Right.
Because generally, we have enough copywriters that we're paying that we have something that's working and can be either monetized or tested.
Okay.
So we don't do that. But I mean, I would love at some point, like Joe's even talking about putting some sort of Skunkworks part of our business where that's all they would do is buy traffic on Facebook, for example, and spend a couple $1,000 and just like send them to articles or something, but just to see like what
What drives the most traffic? Yeah. And what was that guy? It was like 30 things to hoard after a crisis or whatever.
Yeah, Lance Johnson.
That's how he came up with that idea. Like he
was an affiliate marketer, a lot of affiliate marketer. Like so he would test things for someone else's product, and then if he got a hit, then he would create his own product to go with it. It's kind of brilliant. Well, thanks, Scott.
Yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Like I said,
Thanks,
if you ever have a numbers question, just stop by.
and I'll walk you through it.
So we're going to switch gears here, and I'm going to show you a creativity technique that you can use in lots of different applications. Scott, give my pen.
Oh.
Thank you. You can use this technique when you're trying to come up with a big idea. You can use this technique when you're writing your copy. You can use this technique really anywhere in your life where you need more creativity. In fact, the technique I'm going to show you was actually responsible for creating $156 billion. Are you curious what the technique is that created $156 billion? Well, it actually comes down to this little guy. Well, actually not him, but the guy that actually created him, a person named Walt Disney. The Walt Disney Company is, the market cap is $156 billion. So whatever they're doing at Disney is probably worth paying attention for, especially when it comes to like creativity, because really it's all Disney sells is creativity. They sell movies, animated films. Originally it started off with Snow White and Lady and the Tramp and Cinderella and all those movies we grew up with. And the way Walt Disney created those movies was he had a very interesting thing he did. He'd go all over the world and try to recruit 3 specific groups of people. He'd recruit a group of people he'd call the dreamers, the realists, and critics. And what he'd do is he'd actually take these people and put them in like separate rooms. So you'd have a room over here for like the dreamers. And in the room, it'd be a big spacious room with like tables. And you'd bring like toys and people could write on the walls. And the goal of the dreamers was to come up with any crazy idea that they could come up with that was interesting. They had no censorship, no criticism. It was just purely just coming up with ideas. So these people, the dreamers would come up with the idea, they bring it to a different room, which the realist room. The realists had like computers. This was like the 1950s, so they're probably like the entire room was computer, and like storyboards. And their job was basically to, assume the ideas from the dreamers were really possible and figure out how they could actually be implemented. Okay, so it was a story idea. How would you actually turn it into a story? If it was like some sort of new animation technique, how would you actually, use it in the movie? Or if it was a ride in Disneyland, like how would they actually put it together? That was their job, the realists. The realists would then take the ideas over to another room that were filled with the critics. And the critics would go and just try to punch as many holes into it. Actually, like Disney would often sit in the critics room. And they put the critics room actually farther away from everybody else because nobody likes critics, right? And it's actually like upstairs and like a hot, stuffy room that no one wanted to go in. But that was their job, was then to criticize the ideas from the realists. And then what would happen again is they'd take any ideas that survived the critics and that were not killed by the critics, Disney would take them and bring those ideas back to the dreamers to work on them a little more. And they'd kind of run through the process again until the end of the day, they had some sort of genius work of art, Disney World, Disneyland, 101 Dalmatians, etc. So how do we use something like that similar? Well, first of all, a key point I don't want to forget. The key point of how we did that is, number one, he had a process. Number two, he only introduced criticism at a certain point of the process. You never want to introduce criticism too early in the process because, premature criticism can kill creativity. So you want to be critical of your ideas. Joe's kind of talked about like taking your ideas and pretending they're babies and drowning them in the bathtub. Well, that's kind of insane visual, but especially Mickey Mouse right here. But you don't want to do that too early because that will kill the whole process. So you want to make sure, like, if you imagine like a toolbox, you don't use a hammer or a screwdriver, you need a wrench. So criticism is an extremely important part of the process, but you want to have it last after you've already kind of had the dreamer stage and kind of had the realist stage before you get to the critical stage. So the way you might do it yourself on your own, if you don't have a group of people, it'd be interesting if you think about this as well, like who plays what role in our business, because I have my opinions on that. Like the copywriters, or some copywriters are more the dreamers, who's the realists and who's the critics. So I think that's, our business is very creative, but how you do it on your own would be, first of all, you want to maybe pick a spot that is kind of like your neutral zone. Okay, this is like my neutral zone. And you kind of walk over to maybe a certain area and put yourself in kind of like the dreamer state of mind. And how you might do that would be to think of a time when you just were full of ideas and you had no restraints in ideas and the ideas just flowed, and then just let them flow however way you do that, okay? Until you have a whole bunch of ideas. And you might step back in a neutral zone and you step over here and take those ideas and then, you know, try to work with them as if they're really possible. You know, like one way you might do that would be like, what are the ordinary investment ideas I can attach to these crazy ideas I came up with? That might be the spot where you start thinking of that. And you don't want to be critical still at this point. You want to think like, how could I actually do this? And maybe it'll come up blank, but you're still not being critical, okay? And so maybe you started out with like, in the dreamer stage here, maybe you started out with like 50 ideas. Now you're down to like 25 ideas that maybe are like somewhat realistic, that could be accomplished in some way. So then you go back to a neutral zone, and then you come way over here. No one likes critics, right? And in your mind, you're just extremely critical of those ideas. So say you had 25 ideas that have some sort of tie to reality, right, that you can figure out. Well, that's when you can kind of play Grandpa Kurt, okay? And Grandpa Kurt would say like, so what? You know, like your idea of like, you know, like the five cryptocurrencies never to buy, like, so what? What's in it for me? You know, what do I get out of it? Who cares? And the idea is that survive that kind of process, you bring them back to the neutral zone and you kind of look at them again. The ones that were good and survived, maybe you bring them back to the dreamer stage and run the process again. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about it?
This is great.
Okay. All right. So we're actually going to demonstrate it now here with some live volunteers. Lloyd and Ben volunteered to go into the hot seat. You want to go first, Lloyd?
Yeah.
So the way it's going to work is, and this is a group exercise. I just showed you how to do it by yourself, but we can also do it with multiple people if you'd like. Lloyd's going to hand out his copy that he has written so far.
You guys might have to share. I only printed out 10 copies.
Yeah, so share the different copies.
Share.
And
Come on, Kyle. Be a team player.
Stream sharing.
Sorry, guys.
What Lloyd's going to do is he's going to sit here in the dreamer chair, and we're going to. Do you have a pen?
No, it's fine. It's
And-
so long.
And we're going to try to dream up for him as many ideas we can do to add to his copy. We're not going to try. He already has a piece of copy written, and you can see he has a lead written. Actually, quite a bit of it finished. So we're going to spend a few minutes and read this, and then we're going to try to think of everything we might add to Lloyd's idea without any kind of censorship, without any kind of criticism at this point. It could be proof elements. It could be a different headline. It could be a different lead. We're not going to mess with his idea again, but like everything else in here, we're going to give him as many ideas as we can think of, and Lloyd can write them down because we're going to need them for the next stage. So I'll just spend a minute to read the copy. Give you guys like 5 more minutes.
Of course, yeah, that's okay. You're good.
Two more minutes. Another 30 seconds or so.
It's okay. Keep going.
Okay, so Lloyd's in the dreamer room, which means that no idea is out of bounds. Like the bigger, the crazier, the better at this point, just to kind of demonstrate this. So let's not do like a lot of nitpicking about specifics. It's a copy still, in process. So maybe think of big changes to the lead, or big changes to the proof, or different design elements, or something that really could have a big impact. So, and Lloyd's gonna be writing them down. So anyone have any to fire up? Jimmy.
Can you talk about how big this amount of money is, rather than just saying mountain of money? Like, is this $10 million, $10 million, $10 trillion? Does that make a difference?
You did fine on that, but like we could do the what if as well. Just that's a good thing to always practice.
What if you did the thing with the sun?
Yeah.
Can you remind us what the ordinary idea was? Because
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Same thing as
can you maybe give us the?
Ordinary ideas are dividends, getting paid dividends.
okay.
oh man.
What if you made it look newer? Because the font is old, pictures are old, newspaper clippings are old. What if, I don't want to collect this money 30 years ago? Just visually.
Okay. All right, I have one. What if to kind of show that people are collecting this money right now, use some sort of animated map, and little dots showed up like all over the place as far as like all the people who are collecting these kind of checks, right?
Like the cell phone thing?
Huh?
Yeah, the cell phone, like where your servers to the cell phone is on.
Yeah, kind of like a cell phone coverage map. Yeah.
What if you combine I like the President Trump is collecting this money, and then the fact that I like this law makes the mere mentioning of it a crime. So what if you combine those two together and ask a question like, is Donald Trump illegally collecting $900,000 from some mountain of money or something like that? Like hidden in his tax statements?
That's why it's not released.
Or, you could even do it, I don't know, if the Clintons are still, I don't know, they still seem to get some love.
Yeah.
Is Hillary Clinton stealing 1 million, or is she hiding? I don't know. Anyway.
Got something, Rob? Shut up.
Oh, I just said, just because that's why Trump won't release his tax return.
So make it maybe more like, yeah. So like at this point, like there's nothing like it's not such a thing as like a bad idea. In fact, I'm gonna throw one out right now that it's probably horrible, but I think it's still worth throwing out for this exercise, thinking about like what if instead of being so direct it's about money, you're a little more indirect, and it was like the ultimate FDR conspiracy theory. And you go on about how, people think like FDR planned like Pearl Harbor, et cetera, and use that for
Think about, what was that thing where Rich worked? The secret base, whatever.
Oh, the
Yeah.
Eagle's Nest.
Mount something.
Yeah, what if that was something related to?
What,
Where Rich worked?
You mean the guy the rich spinner?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he was-
Kirk.
I don't think there was some
Secret
way
government
or
compound or
something like that.
Were they hiding in this?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Alright guys, fire off some crazy
My other
ideas.
idea was the pictures. I mean, could you like make, I have a kind of, you can make like a big red arrow that points at the guy signing the thing, and then maybe like circle somebody that's important there, and then have like some bubbles where the guy's thinking. There's all these guys in this picture, maybe you have like some bubbles, he's thinking, I'm like $1 million, like $5 million.
I was thinking of pictures to as well. Scott was saying to make it look newer, maybe you show like a juxtaposition of like the super old fucking guys making all this money, and then you have a bunch of like Benz in like bow ties and whatever at their yacht club. It's like showing that this generation is still making money off.
Yeah. Or you could do like FDR and Trump, just like
Yeah.
Wait,
connection.
give me 1 second. Can you repeat that? So you want the old picture of
Old
like,
picture of like, yeah, when it was
these
first created,
guys,
these old guys,
right?
like the old aristocracy was making money, and now secretly, because you haven't been going to the fucking yacht club every weekend like that, you don't know that people are still using this hidden program to
okay, what was your thing?
Oh, I was saying just you have FDR on the front cover, and you talk about Trump. So why not you put them both on the front cover? So it's been used from FDR to Trump and everyone in between. It's lasted this long.
I got something. Oh, sorry. Is there something you can throw in there about how it's not going to go away anytime soon? Or what if you added something that talks about how it's kind of perpetual in a way, or even growing?
In the lead?
In the, yeah, probably. Because that was, now that I'm thinking about it, that was my initial objection. Like, okay, it's old, it's probably going to die soon.
Kind of related to that, you mentioned a deadline of April 12th, but what if you explained why there's a deadline on April 12th? Like what's happening on April 12th that makes it urgent right now?
He's got some crazy ideas.
Wasn't he was elected 4 times, correct? He died early in his 4th term.
Yeah.
So that's, what really happened was he was about to overturn that rule. He was about to sign an executive order that allowed people to advertise about it. So a few days, I don't know, someone's fucking taken out.
I've got a crazy ass idea. I read yesterday that Trump was talking about bringing back gold. Going back on the gold standard. So maybe something, this is why it's been held secret for 8 years, because Trump's going back to gold.
Is FDR the guy who collected the gold?
Yeah.
So what if this is based on this is the gold that he stole from the
Secret
American
handshake
people?
or something like that, right?
Yeah.
He's waiting for Trump to come back.
Remember, no limits. Crazy ideas.
What if somehow the Social Security is going broke? What if somehow you found the missing Social Security money or something?
What if you positioned it where there's a secret document attached to the Social Security Act that just got uncovered? Like they wrote the law and then kind of like the Da Vinci Code or something.
The secret document that.
Like a secret document that was unrevealed related to the Social Security Act, which has been revealed now. A secret clause or secret addendum or something.
I don't know where I'm going with this one, but FDR was the guy he had polio and he had a whole polio resort basically, people with polio. And so his whole residency was done like to hide that he pulled those. He put his desk originally had an open window in front of it. You could see his feet, but they added onto the desk so that you couldn't see his feet. And like he was never shown standing anywhere, and it was always they worked really hard to hide that. So what if like this was he hid that? This is his other secret that he hid, or I don't know how he would do that, but
Just hide all the money in his shoes.
I was just thinking, on the chart, like on page 5, you have the cash payoff in billions. And I was thinking, if you look at the chart, if you look at the last one, have like the last bar like exploding out of the top of the diagram. And then the next one like going way above the chart and like have the question mark, like where's this going? How much can you earn?
What if you focused a little bit, because everyone's talking about the FDR side of it, but you mentioned a lot of times how Wall Street is like gonna go broke and things like that. What if you, I'm not a person that's very creative, but maybe someone here can come up with an idea of like how Wall Street, maybe like it's a little bit about FDR, but then it's about the crash of like Wall Street or something like that. This, I don't know, I'm not
Okay, well-
creative.
One more.
all right.
What if under the yacht picture you write, this could be you, this could be you.
Last call.
So this is just you mentioned like FDR and Clinton and Trump, or is it just like this is the presidential pension or something like that?
That'd be awesome. I think it's already been done.
We'll put it down anyways. At this point, we don't censor.
What if you make like a wild ass prediction who the next president's gonna be? That's the reason because of this. You say, oh, it was, you know, you can even do that. So it was like Obama, now it's Trump.
Now it's The Rock.
Not trying
The
to-
Rock.
Right, yeah, something like that, something wild.
Oprah.
Whoever is investing this will be the next president.
The Rock, secret.
Like the Mr. Who from the Shark Tank, the Joe keeps talking about, what's his name?
Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah, maybe you
Kevin
could predict
Blair.
he's gonna be the guy or whatever. Mark Cuban, exactly.
All right, so we'll move through.
Hold on, I have one more
okay,
stupid
Carlos.
idea. Back to the Trump thing, what if like somehow Trump was like, if has found all this money, can use it to build a wall or something?
Okay, so move your chair over a little bit to the realist room. And fire up the old IBM computer and put some storyboards out, and maybe just read off some of those ideas, and we try to see if we can actually figure out how he might accomplish those. Just pick some of the harder ones, maybe that.
Take the harder ones first.
Yeah,
Okay.
the ones that maybe because we're just kind of simulating the whole process here. Like ones that seem maybe like really out there.
Can you read your handwriting?
I've
been
what
there.
Do you know what the two guys
It's
that
painful.
volunteered Chloe and Ben?
I know,
Take
perfect.
Oh, yeah, right.
Okay,
So
President
reaching out
Trump.
storyboard is
Okay, so combining President Trump and the fact that it's a crime to mention this, so
okay. So President Trump, like,
illegally collecting money from this.
yeah. So what are some ways of, like we could figure that out?
Find any people who actually like collected dividends in normal life, who actually eventually got arrested and was sent to jail for something. So it was
Yeah.
illegal for,
This
it was
person
illegal
did
at some
this,
point.
This person did it. They arrested this person,
Okay,
they
good.
arrested.
What was that story about Trump where he like jumped out of his limousine and like saved that guy from getting beaten with a baseball bat?
Yeah. True story.
Yeah,
It happened with his fists.
What if you just,
He's actually a thug.
what if you just use all like the stuff that's going on, like the FBI scandals, the Hillary scandal, use all that, and like he's hiding this and his because he knows he'll be the next big scandal.
That's why they're after him. Yeah.
What's another idea that was?
That's why Cody said yes.
If you could find like one Trump
Yes.
company, they're all over the fucking world. Like if you could find where he has one company registered in one country that's known for being like a tax haven or something like that. You know, you could show why he's more clearly trying to hide it or something. And that ties into why he won't release his tax returns, because then he'd have to reveal his hidden bank account.
Or whatever.
What's another idea on your list, Lloyd? That's kind of crazy that we'd have to figure out. Yeah, obviously, like some of these are pretty easy. Just do them. But like for the map of like the one idea I threw out there of like thousands of people on it and like kind of light up with it. Like how would you get that proof to do that? You know, like so it could show like all across the country people are collecting these things.
Testimonials. Don't we know like where they're from?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
what, like
it's
the
just
graphic
simple. It's like, how I do it, just like look at all the, you know, it could just be the customer list of people that get what's a new service, but other services, I don't know. It could be, but you guys don't have to back that up legal. That like a certain number.
Company insiders.
Yeah, company inside.
Shareholders. For that.
Yeah.
What if on that you had the map as your headline thing, at the top you had a ticker, and you'd be like the testimonials, and every time a person would go past, it would flash where they live in the United States.
Yeah. I gotta figure out realist though. Like how do we actually do that?
Design,
Hire a
design,
program.
yeah.
That's a possible solution.
Have you guys been on they annoy the hell out of me, but some of these websites now, like a little thing will pop up that will say like, Ben Ogren just bought right?
Yeah.
And I guess that's supposed to like veritable social proof,
Right.
or whatever. So maybe as you're reading your fucking dividend promo, you know the names, and it could be like, oh, Manny just got a dividend check for $2,000, and then and keep doing different names, but more. This guy just got another one, and it like follows you as you scroll.
So when you're in this realist room trying to like connect the dots and how these things actually happen, you might still come up short, but you can at least get some directions, like how you might, like to Rob's idea, like realistically, how would you do that? I don't fucking know. I'm not a computer program, right? But my solution that might be when I come up that room would be go talk to someone in marketing and figure out, does anyone have that kind of programming skills to do it, and then go talk to them. So like you don't have to figure out necessarily the whole thing, but the key is like start taking those crazy ideas and figuring out like how to actually accomplish them. And again, we're still not censoring at this point because it still might be a good idea. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't censor it saying, well, we can't do that because I don't know computer programming. Well, that's a bullshit excuse. You know what I mean? We can, if we don't have one and it's a really good idea, then we go hire one as a contractor just to try it out as a test. So when you're in this room here, the realist room, you're still not censoring it. Maybe one more, like an easy one we can figure out.
Sure, okay, Old Wall Street plus New Wall Street photos. From the Old Wall Street's photo with like New Wall Street, younger people.
Well, you got FDR signing a deal right here. There's pictures of Trump signing deals.
Yeah.
You put those
It's a
two
good way to
together.
make
Yeah,
here,
juxtapose.
it's like future, present, past. Yeah. Okay, move over to the. You're now in the critic room. So maybe name off some more of the ideas, like the more wacky ones. We could really have fun by talking about them.
Okay, the
That
FDR
one sucks.
conspiracy theory, how he planned Pearl Harbor, how he's
Yeah, okay. So like the criticism I would think of that would be like that would be really indirect, right? You're not talking about money at all. You're really aiming at like a really small part of the market that's probably conspiracy theorists that really care who planned fucking Pearl Harbor. So that would be my point.
People love FDR too, so you can make him out as a bad guy.
right.
Yeah, exactly. At least the word bad guy is not really congruent with the positive ideas. Any other ideas?
FDR is early end of his fourth term, being because he's about to cancel this.
I don't think you can legally back that up. Done.
No, I mean that's like when you're in this area, like this is where again you're trying to call down the best idea. Like we're just doing like simulation here. You're trying to take the ones that at least has some sort of basis in reality, and then just cut them out because at the end of the day we can't pursue every idea. We're using the 80-20 rule as much as possible. Really, like of those ideas that even get to the realist stage or even possible and realistic, really only 20% of them you're going to be able to act on. So that's like kind of the purpose of being really critical. And when you're doing it for other people, you got to be real careful because again, like we use the what if thing. But on your own ideas, you need to be brutal. You need to be brutal. Like Joe said, taking babies and smash their head with a hammer. Oh wait, he said drown them in a bathtub.
But wait though, if it happened closely around the same time, you don't have to say that it was the reason, but you would be like, coincidence, question mark? Like this happened, and a few months later he got whatever.
So I mean,
Coincidence?
like the
Not directly saying it, but
So like Angie's point, she kind of backed up to like the real estate.
Yeah.
That's good too.
Why
And
not?
That's why you gotta kind of like cycle through them, right? So like you would take it. Then at that point, if you had like, say of all the ideas we named today, you would have like the best 20%. Well, you start over again at the 3-minute stage and see like what other ways to sharpen them. And at some point, you need to implement them. I mean, that's like otherwise you're stuck in a dip and endlessly dreaming. But anyways, cool.
One more.
Want to do one more? All right, Chris.
he likes this.
He took away all the gold, and this is like the found money.
I mean,
It's actually a cool idea.
I think it's.
It's a cool idea.
Yeah.
It's another thing to the critical stage, though. You don't want to be a just total.
What does gold have to do with dividends?
Exactly.
Right?
That's what I worry about too. Like you're complaining about too many ideas at this point. Yeah.
That would be like another idea, like the idea of one, the idea of one. What is it called? Rule of one.
But another point I was going to make though is like your job as a critic isn't to kill all your ideas either. And just
Yeah.
I mean, you can
I'm writing that
if
down
you
right
do
now.
it for yourself, it can be really rough. But at some point, what you want is the most critical part of yourself to be like, okay, that's a pretty good idea. Because it means if you're really going that extreme and being that critical, then it means it's probably a really good idea, right? I mean, if you're truly being extremely critical. So the goal is not to, again, to kill all your ideas at the stage. It's just to make sure that only the best survive. All right, thanks, Lloyd.
All right.
Ben's up next.
I want to piggyback on what Rob said about the thing popping with people's names saying.
That's my idea today. It's going into the Excel sheet. Calling
Well, you
it.
can steal that one too. Do you know how, like, if we have a limited deal thing where it's like 250
I'm
people
gonna
only
move
can
this
get on that list, for example?
Timer countdown?
Yeah, it's like 150 people out of 250 have already registered. And then as you go down the promo, it's like 160 are now registered. Like you're running out of time, not like literally time, but running out of time to other places. And it's like, because when you're like booking something on Expedia, it always comes up as like 57 people are looking at this hotel right now, and you know there are only 2 rooms available. So you're like, crap, if I won this and that. I don't know. It's just a crazy idea.
Legal is like the ultimate thing.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
All right, same. You should have it out of the Sharon.
Yeah, or no, there's not. I think.
Where? Where are they?
They're
So
Oh, okay.
same process for us. Spend like 5 minutes. Where you best? Do you want to maybe just tell us the ordinary idea so everyone knows that as well?
yeah, it's just dividends.
Just to
Okay.
We love. You do anything.
It's 2 pages.
Hey Ben, you ever heard of a stapler before?
I don't have time. This is
another minute. Okay, sit down in the streamer room. Okay, Ben ready? Okay, same as before, so fire off some crazy ideas.
So since you already toned the line on heresy, why don't you just call it Vatican Holy Bread or something? Like, I don't know, royalty and Vatican don't feel like they.
Yeah.
Well,
So rename the checks.
what if we had a picture of the Pope?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
in Vatican City, or like looking at some like old.
Good
I'm thinking if you had like a gift image, you could like the Pope reach in his pocket.
What? Oh. This is guillotine.
Pretty cool.
What if we make it seem like it's some new kind of Catholic Church thing going on?
Dogma.
Yeah, it's like
Animal.
it's like a lawsuit or something, like Roman Catholic Church required to pay out huge checks, you know,
See, what if it was like
this
the
time
mob?
not for fondling boys or something.
We're there to
I like that. That was on his idea though, but I think it was, since it's Vatican, it's Italian, so maybe it was like the mob thing. It's like the mob's got the gun and the knife in the bag.
There was actually a lawsuit that the Vatican Church got caught laundering money
Oh, yeah, they're
for the mafia politicians.
Yeah, but this Pope, and then you go to the other angle, which this Pope is more like the Pope of the people, so he wants to redistribute the
Give
wealth,
back,
right?
yeah.
I mean, that's the real reason why that Pope gets retired.
Yeah, right.
Popes normally go until they die, but this one, there was some
Last
weird
one,
conspiracy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you could go with
Pope was about to
the Pope is like the socialist redistribution thing because he does all these like leftist, he talks about all this leftist kind of stuff. Lots of quotes from there.
What if you made it position it like it's some sort of program that's been paying off like hundreds of years because Roman Catholic Church's been around at least 2,000 years.
You do thousands. You do like Christ's bank account. Bank account.
Christ's bank account.
You could go, but that's like extreme. You could go like
Yeah.
Jesus started this program.
Jesus check.
Jesus.
Yes.
These checks are actually the body of
Seriously.
Christ.
What if you took that to the next level?
Yes.
Oh,
The
boy.
metaphor of putting money in the basket, but instead the basket pays you.
Oh, nice.
Like
Manny.
stealing from the
That's a good one.
Stealing from the church.
Reverse time.
The tides are coming out.
Vatican refunds ties. Tithes.
What if instead of like the basket's like an ATM machine in the back of the church?
What if you made it like a secret? The Vatican is using some secret in the Bible to get wealth.
Matter of fact, the Catholic Bible has additional books in
Yeah.
it that the Protestant Bible doesn't have. I bet you most Protestants don't really know that.
Yeah.
And you could say like, you could tie it into
You're gonna be like,
you tie into some of that, the hidden books of the Catholic Bible, fucking secret.
All right, ready? Confession cash.
What's really going on? in this
They're smuggling cash.
Plus, the Italian government's going through like this big upheaval in government voting right now, so maybe something like that. Like that's the reason why all this shit's getting banned.
What if to kind of rip off the refund idea is something like the Catholic Church got a surplus of donations last year. Now they're sharing it with
Divine
Or-
dividends.
Divine
There you go.
dividends.
Or this church is suddenly giving $1,000 wine.
All right, like I think this is even more strange, but like, what if you kind of obscured the Vatican angle and made it more like this this 1,900-year-old Roman bank is paying out these checks.
The
What if you literally say like God is coming down from
Well, I don't know
heaven
how
and
long-
giving money?
God is miracle money.
I like that.
The Vatican actually has the highest, they actually have the highest concentration of like criminals per square mile. For real. Because it's only like 1 square mile a day, right? So they really do. They have like, of anywhere in the world, they have the highest concentration of criminals. So it's like, you could do some sort of juxtaposition, these highest
There's 80
concentration of
people in like
criminals, but they're worth the most money in the world.
It's its own country too, right?
Yeah.
So you could say smallest country, something about the smallest country in the world
What if
gives
it
out
was let's just take a lot of it. what if it was more about like some sort of like diplomatic agreement? Because to Matt's point, like the Vatican's a sovereign country, so it has different treaties and
Yeah,
such
interesting.
with different.
Right,
So
governments.
they have a huge wall around the whole thing. So
Yeah.
about a huge wall around the tiniest country in the world.
What if the Vatican is
Just
trying to
extra
take
money
over
from
the
building the
world?
wall.
They just got
Cool,
caught.
going there.
They're creating their own empire.
Interesting.
But they got-
The Holy Roman Empire.
They're trying to revive the whole.
Like thinking like proof
Which is the one in
elements,
LA.
design elements. We talked a lot about just
Yeah,
that kind of idea.
So if you've been to the Vatican, it's like ridiculous, but you can't do it justice in like one photo like this, because it kind of looks small, and
Yeah.
first this is like an entire city packed in thing.
Yeah.
So what if you did just like
City.
a giant ass golden statue? They have plenty of them there. And or you did like just a photo of like the whole facility from the outside, like the whole circle in front, and the whole, it's made to be like breathtaking. So like just use that photo.
Yeah,
It's kind of abstract.
have like the whole headline, the whole part, the whole top of the website is like be inside the Vatican's whatever.
What if you went back to like the whole hope is like the Robin Hood, right? So hope you win to the people. What if you just had them constant pictures of him handshaking both leaders, saying like he's having these meetings to build this money, right?
Oh, from Lloyd's idea, like inside the Vatican, what if you got pictures of like super valuable things that are inside and be like, they used this money to buy this or like build this or.
You could make same idea Lloyd had with that picture. You guys seen those like not sure what they call them, like gigapixel things. They'll take like that huge panorama, but it's like in that super high resolution, and you can like zoom in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can turn
And
around.
go
and
around
that.
360.
You can like
You
move.
can also make it interactive and get some commitment from the reader.
Definitely
You click a statue
We
and
only got 10
find
minutes
money
left, so-
hidden underneath.
Yeah.
That's
That's where they stash the money.
We gotta accelerate. So
Money
we
hunt.
Ben, move over to the realist room if you can. All right, some of these ideas, name some of the more crazy ones. We gotta figure out how these actually
There's
fit
a
in reality here.
new lawsuit, and it's not for fondly.
What's that?
It's not fun.
I'm sure the Vatican gets sued all the time by different things that are not even that controversial.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure the bank gets sued all the time just because banks are always in lawsuits. So we're just probably petty things.
Probably the first 10,000 hits on Google.
I think some more crazy ones maybe.
That's the craziest. The Vatican is trying to take over the world.
It's not crazy.
It's true.
They've got embassies all over the United States.
I mean,
Religious presence to like pretty much.
Where is
I mean, realistically, you could just, probably the number of Catholics has probably grown. If you look at a place like Africa.
They have the most land.
You can even disguise that it's what it is. It just you can feel like it's ISIS or something. They're here, they're there, they're infiltrating everywhere, they're buying up all of those valuable
Secret
real estate all
folk
over the
meetings
world.
They have their own schools
Like world
indoctrinating
leaders.
children.
One more.
Alright.
Yeah, explain it as if it's like ISIS taking over the world. You're not really saying it's ISIS or the Vatican. You just
Yeah,
explain
there's
it. Oh,
some
they,
new terrorist group.
They're buying land map, they're buying the luxurious hotel, they're buying this,
Yeah.
buying that, they're not bombing stuff, they're just buying it up. Slowly just controlling us, slowly invading in a very.
I like one was the Bible secret additional books.
Yeah.
You might just look through those books.
There are like
the
3, I
book of-
think.
Yeah, Enoch, a couple other ones. Not Catholics. And just try to find maybe something when they're talking about money.
Call it cooking the books.
All right, over to the criticism. All right, fire out some more of the ideas. that
We're all
would be
crazy. None of
Really
us.
critical. I'm trying to be specific in your criticism. Like I would just say like that ISIS idea. Would probably offend
Yeah.
a percentage of
Yeah.
Catholic and probably Christian.
Most things are like
Bear
Second-
in mind that a lot of our readers are like conservative
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christians,
second thing
so
is
if like you say anything
Yeah,
to
you're pretty
offend
much
the
gonna
guy,
alienate.
Yeah. You gotta
there's
be
kind of
careful in
a
general.
disconnect between like making money and like who wants
Yeah.
to make money off like
Yeah, why would
Something
we make
positioned
money
as
off of
evil.
blood
like
money?
position it in a positive light, whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Idea.
Surplus of donation.
the surplus of donations. I mean, logically, why would they give us something like that away? We need to figure out like some sort of, because that might be offensive to somebody that like don't like. If I gave that money to a church, I wouldn't
Yeah,
expect
what
them to
the
go
hell?
and have somebody else.
Yeah.
So,
Also hard to actually know to back up like what the number of donations is. Like how are you gonna find
Yeah,
that
put
out?
it in a basket, you're like funding debt on that.
Yeah.
Well, helping at work, we could say that Catholicism or whatever is less prominent, and they're actually doing this as almost like a pseudo marketing campaign. Like they have all this money, they have all this wealth. People aren't religious; they're trying to bring back the religiousness of it, and they're doing it through this awareness campaign.
Yeah, then maybe you
it's
add
funny,
another
like just on a
nation.
process side, like
You
I
jump
think
to
you
the
did the same thing
dreamers,
last
yeah.
time. Sometimes you do that criticism thing, and you try to get real critical. But what you'll do is you'll figure it out like either a new idea or a realistic idea. So actually, that's a criticism is actually even more valuable sometimes than just culling ideas, because you can actually help trigger like either a new way to tie in reality or even just a whole new other idea. So that's good.
I don't know if this is criticism, but it kind of came up. So I don't know about this, who would be offended and whatnot, because like Catholicism, like there's so much conspiracy behind it. And I imagine a lot of our readers are Protestant, and it wasn't too long ago JFK, right? So these people were around, JFK was around. He was the first Catholic president. He was running for president, get to give a fucking speech about how he promised he would not be controlled by the Pope. It was a huge fucking deal. And these people are still some of our readers. Like, would it be smart to do a survey to find out like these people's religious?
I would say that no, just because of the fact that surveys people are only going to tell you what we can only really. If someone wanted to test that idea, the only way we really know would be the testers, and we know for sure then whether or not that's true or not. You know, we can only measure with some of the numbers Scott was putting up on the wall here, behaviors. I don't know, I kind of distrust surveys because people just either feed you what they want to hear, or you're selecting just the people that respond to surveys, which.
The way you get around it sometimes you ask them what their neighbor thinks.
Yeah, maybe. There's probably better ways to do a survey, but for the most part, like the only thing we know 100% is their behavior based on a test or something. All right, man. Cool. Thanks. So on that Disney creative technique, who learned something?
All of it.
My major reasons is I'm critical like right off the bat.
Yeah.
So
You gotta put it in the right order.
really employ this really helpful.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, well, it's really good in a group setting.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, just something fun.
We should create
do
big
this all
ideas
day.
in a group.
And you guys can do this as a group if you like. I mean, that's something maybe you do for a coffee buddy or just like for hanging around people. The key thing is just to have a process. I mean, like Scott just said, sometimes people are too critical in the beginning, which is not a good way to do it, but you do have to be critical at some point. Otherwise, you're just going to be constantly throwing up shit against the wall, and that's not the way to do it either. So, I don't know what Joe has planned for Monday. He has something planned, a surprise, some sort of media buying related thing with some special guests. So just stay tuned for that. I don't know who's coming, but it may be not just 2 hours on Monday. It might be 4 hours, just so you're aware. It might be, I'm not sure how long it's going to be. There's going to be a couple of things planned.
Bring us food.
So stay tuned to your email, and Joe will let me know as soon as he can.
Yeah, bring us snacks.
Thanks, guys.
What do we need to do by Monday?
No homework. I mean, homework should be at this point.
Writing.
Your home. All right, I'll give you a piece of homework. You should maybe try this process out. You just learn this thing on promotional stuff.
Okay, be gentle with the phones.
That's good.
We walk.